Professor Aristotle Kallis, let me jump to you. Now, as talking to Mr. Khan, of course, democracies, like any other form of governance, do have many flaws within them. But there is this international global narrative or consensus that they work for the people. There is greater freedom within democracies for the people. Was this a construction of narrative that built over time?
I think, again, I will go back to what you were discussing earlier on. The key element here is, what do we mean by people? How broad or narrow that group of the people is. So, for example, you could have institutionally perfect, into inverted commas, democracies that tick all boxes with regard to freedom of expression, representation, and so on and so forth, that, however, extend those rights to particular groups within that population and not to the whole groups of people that live within a society. For example, people who are not members of the ethnic group, people who are migrants, and so on and so forth. So in that respect, delivering for the people can have both meanings. I don't want to get into a relative discussion here, but I think the broader the beneficiaries of the people, the more able is a democracy to deliver what it's supposed to be delivering to its people. And I would make also one more point. Sometimes we tend to conflate two concepts. One is democracy, which is the rule of the many. And of course, that could mean 50.1%. And the other one is liberalism, which is a particular group of ideas about what democracy should do, how minorities should treat it, how respectful majorities should be with regard to the minorities. Now, historically, these two have never been the same, exactly the same, but they have converged quite a bit. But we have to be very careful here, because quite recently we hear quite a lot of voices. For example, I can mention Hungary, and the Prime Minister Viktor Orban, for example, there, who has made a point about any liberal democracy, which is a democratic system, rule of the many, but not necessarily subscribing to the ideas of liberalism, of ultimate freedom, of respect for minorities, and so on and so forth. So to finish with this and go back to your original question, for a democracy to deliver for the people and for a democracy to be respectful of all those differences, we have come to instill in it an element of liberal thinking. And that is not necessarily something that is synonymous with democracy. It is a narrative, as you say, that has been constructed over time, but it's a narrative that is coming under a lot of pressure recently, and quite successful pressure, if I judge by the growing critics.